What's up, everybody? Caleb with Mid-MichiganNow here, and I am joined by Genesee County's own Randy Zimmerman, the mind behind Arrow Comics.
Hey there.
A local comic book publisher that has brought about unique stories from the world of superheroes, demigods, science fiction, myth, and legend. Randy, thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
So I got to know, because I'm an avid comic lover myself.
Amen.
What first made you fall in love with comics like these that you've created?
Well, just the need to entertain myself. Really, grew up in Montrose, very small town. Back when there were only 3 channels on the TV and a tree house in the backyard, and got to love comics quite a bit. My parents wouldn't let me have superhero comics when I was younger because they considered them too violent. This was way back in the 70s. So I got to read all of the comics, and on my way. I was 2 miles out of town and used to stop at the library every day after school because I hate riding the bus, and just absorbed everything that was comics, and just got to be a huge fan of the art form. And my parents used to have to ration me down to 2 pages of notebook paper a day because I was going through reams and reams of notebook paper on them. And so I quickly learned if I drew lines through the paper, if I drew like a big plus sign through the middle of the notebook paper, I had 4 pages to work from as opposed to just front and back. So I got to start telling stories, and it just went from there. And I grew up on all of those old funny animal books. I finally convinced my parents to let me have superheroes when they caught me with a Twilight Zone comic that had a guy making a deal with the devil. I was raised in a pretty religious household. Well, a really religious household. And Mom made the deal with me that if I threw that Twilight Zone digest into the fire, that I could pick up superheroes. So that's what I started doing. And I already knew all the characters from the start, and I just started amassing a large collection, and it's just gone from there. And that was way back in my junior high school days. I used to walk home from school, like I said, and I'd stop at Dugan's Drugs, which is no longer in Montrose, but I used to stop at Dugan's Drugs and straighten their comic rack out for them for $1 worth of comics a week.
Oh, wow.
So I also got the privilege of opening the bundle as the ladies there that were working didn't want to open and deal with the comic rack. So it was easy to get messy. So I'd stop in every day after school and straighten everything out and get $1 worth of comics, and was able to open the bundle up, and everybody would meet us there on the day that the new bundle was dropped off. We'd hand off, you read Captain America, here's your Captain America book, this one's mine, and all of that. And it just went from there. And it's went to Skill Center, now the Tech Center, here to learn commercial art with Mr. Stewart as a teacher during my junior and senior year, and learned every tool imaginable for commercial art that was quickly replaced by Photoshop, like within 5 or 6 years. So I was a master rubylith and amberlith separator there for a little while. And Mr. Stewart warned us at the time that we did the class, you'd never find a job locally doing what he was teaching, that you'd probably have to move to a larger city. That was before the internet sprung up. But I got a job at a t-shirt shop and working as their art department, and at the Great Put On, worked there for about 10 years or so, and got to know the t-shirt business, did a lot of t-shirt art designs, and and still just loved comics. And from there, I was printing my own stuff about 85. I started doing comic conventions and showing stuff off, and just had to do it. It's always been a passion of mine to tell stories and to create characters and to, hopefully entertain people. That's always been the idea. I was lucky to get some short stories in the back of Journey, which was printed out of Windsor from Aardvark Vanaheim Publishing, that Bill Mesner-Loebs did. And he's still here in the state. And it just blew out from there. Got involved with Arrow Comics in 85, along with Susan Van Camp. We created Tales from the Aniverse. And we've sprung off on our own after a few issues, and it's just gone from there. And I've never stopped wanting to do comics. So I got lucky with the Arrow Comics name. I just kind of was able to inherit it from Ralph and Stu, who was Stewart, I should say. Ralph and Stewart, who were the real creators of Arrow Comics. They were out of Ypsilanti. I just picked up that name and kept running with it. And I've been publishing as Arrow Comics off and on ever since.
It's wonderful.
Doing all sorts of different comics. I just love the art form. The combination of words and pictures together is it for me. It's like making your own little mini movies, and you have complete control over it if you want. You know, you can always get. And I hire out different artists at times, or collaborate with different people and do different stories and different genres and that. But I just love doing it.
So March is reading month, and I understand that over the years you've given out a number of your publications for free to get people interested in reading.
Absolutely.
In comics. What inspired that initiative for you?
Well, because like I said, literally, they were the entertainment anchor for me growing up. And that's how else are you going to get? You get your own little short story, or it's like having your own streaming program that you can binge anytime that you want. Just go and dig out a long box and start reading through. I got a wall of long boxes over here with that between me, the wife, and I. Luckily, she reads comics as much as I do. So we're we've got a nice collection of books, and I've when I got fed up with dealing with the direct market of comic distributors, there was a direct market sending out to comic retail shops. I started my own newspaper here in the area called Flint Comics and Entertainment, and ran that for 100 issues. It was like a newspaper filled with strips and stories and just anything that I could find that was good reading. I like to consider ourselves Flint's favorite bathroom reader when it was coming out, and really proud of those 100 issues. And came out monthly, mostly monthly, bi-monthly there towards the end, because when the Flint water crisis happened, the advertising dollars for the independent businesses got harder and harder to find, and we eventually just decided to stop publishing. And now I'm back doing crowdfunding projects, and going online and promoting books and Arrow Comics that way. So
it's great. Tell us a little bit about your creative process. How have you developed these different stories and characters over the years?
There's no magic. There's no magic words. There's no magic formula or anything for it. I have a whole bunch of spiral notebooks sitting around my basement here. Each one has different ideas or stories or genres or whatever in them, different pieces here and there. And now I'm mostly digital anymore. Very rarely do I do what they call physical comics, even though that's what's the physical comic art pages have been just jumping in prices the last last 10 years or so. Just crazy prices. But I've been working digitally for most of it, to sit there and write in a spiral notebook, and then write out a script or lay it out roughly in the notebook, and then put it into pages and work it through, make print files and send it off to a print on demand printer. Luckily, there's a nice one here in the state, and there's a few other one that we're connected with. Right now I'm associated with Critical Blast. I believe they're out of Alabama, that does all of the publishing and shipping. Arkansas. It starts with an A. That RJ handles for me. Everything's online anymore. You don't even have to leave your basement. You can just stay here for forever if you want. So get some food and
You took my next question right out of my mouth for me. I was going to ask you.
Oh, sorry.
You've been in this business for so many years. How has it changed? And you said everything is online now.
It's evolved. Yeah, it's really evolved. Well, there's so many ways of finding comics anymore digitally, and well, actually, that's not true either. It's either digital or physical. And there's way back when there were comics everywhere. Flint Journal would carry Alley Oop every day. We'd always look for that strip. My brothers used to cut that out and paste it together into Hamity sack bags that they would cut out and use flour paste and paste up little collection books of Alley Oop strips. And that used to have comics wrapped around bazooka bubble gum. If you remember that, used to buy them in little quarter bubbles as you walk out of the stores or whatever. But nowadays it's mostly digital, or you go into a comic shop, or you order them online through crowdfunding. And that's really my main avenue right now. We have a site up there called fundmycomic.com that has a lot of different comic campaigns that are available for anybody to stop by and buy. So
that's great.
That's where I'm at now. I still have a few products In some of the comic shops, I know Comic Relief there on Fenton and Bristol has a few books. I've been meaning to get up to Amazing over on Richfield and Center, Amazing Comics to give them some product, and Galaxy Comics up in Saginaw carries a lot of my work as well. So on top of trying to find it online.
Right. So who are some of your inspirations, the people that created comics before you that made you want to pursue this as a career?
I was lucky to meet Will Eisner a couple of times. He did a strip called The Spirit, which was a masked detective. Frank Miller did a movie of that was very badly adapted from Will's work. I got to meet Will a couple of times. He's a big mentor of mine that I admire. My style, it tends to be very cartoony. My comic style itself tends to be real cartoony, and I think that comes from a combination of C.C. Beck that did the old Captain Marvel, the Shazam Captain Marvel, when it was first out in the 50s, dots for eyes in a very simplistic cartoony style. And I was a big fan of Carl Barks' work, Barks with a B, Carl Barks' duck work. He did Donald Duck and Uncle Scrooge. Any DuckTales that you have ever seen, any adaptation, any animated adaptation is usually taken off of one of Carl Barks' stories. And he was just a master craftsman and had a grand sense of adventure. Plus, as a kid, the only cartoons I got to see were I got to watch Johnny Quest, got to see all of the early Hanna-Barbera superhero characters back when they were being superheroes. So I saw Space Ghost when he was more of a superhero instead of a talk show host. And that's my Space Ghost. They're going around with Jan and Jason, Blip, and all of those old characters have a special place in my heart, because I used to Saturday mornings on Channel 5, I would watch them all the time, or CBS. I'd get up real early on Saturday mornings to catch those. I've got most of them now on DVD. I think I'm only missing one or two of the shows that they've got collected, but everything now is available through streaming. So
right,
it's all good.
What are some of the challenges that you face as an independent publisher, artist, and creator?
Well, the big problem right now is being seen and getting out there underneath people's noses and having them being able to read your stuff. That's why I like giving comics away. And you've got a copy of HeroBot #1 that I've given away quite a few copies of that at shows. I love seeing a kid. I've got a little model of HeroBot, my character, little HeroBot. I got a picture of him right here. I could throw up that I do, that my brother made for me. My brother's really big into Star Wars droids. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to interview him eventually here too. But he made a HeroBot for me. I take it around to shows, and any kid, especially 10, 12 years old, that sees HeroBot and comes over to it and starts marveling over it. It's like, you read hey kids, you read comics? Here's a comic for you. Take this and read it. And I tell the parents that it's okay, it's safe, that it's the adventures of a little 3-foot tall giant robot that goes around and defends his city from large monsters. And but he's grumpy. He's got an attitude of an old janitor infused into him. So he won't work unless he's on the clock, and gets time and a half for hazard pay. But his whole lesson here for the character is tenacity. He comes up against a unsurmountable, huge monster, and he has to figure out how to handle it or take care of it or deal with it in order to save the city. And that's the whole point behind it. Plus, the boy who created him is a little kid named Tippy Totak, and his parents own Totak Tech, which is a tech company that he created the little robot through, and he has some problems with inventions every once in a while, and there's all sorts of stories that we can tell with it. So
yeah, I'm very excited. I read HeroBot 1, you got me HeroBot 2 here, so I'm excited to see what happens next. I found it very clever. I've never read anything like it. I'm a big kaiju fan of that entire genre.
Dude.
You combined that aspect with the feel of a Saturday morning funny. I thought it was a very interesting read.
Those old science fiction. Yeah, those old science fiction movies back Channel 5, I think, would show them on Saturday afternoon. And it had, giant spiders and all of the Godzilla movies and all that. That's near and dear to my heart as well. That and the Japanese Ultraman material, and just the giant robot Shogun Warriors, and that's really a callback to them. but that's only one of my properties. I like doing a lot of different things. So, but HeroBot is especially, I'm very fond of that character.
So do you have any advice for any creatives that might want to get their beak wet in this business after doing it for so many years?
The big thing is not to be intimidated. Don't think that you can't do it. And if you think you can't, I love teaching, used to teach a lot before the bug hit after school, teach cartooning. The big thing is not to let yourself or tell yourself you can't do it. And it goes with anything, learning how to play a guitar or any artistic endeavor or whatever. If you have a passion for it, do it. Just sit there and do it over again, and know at the front, you're not going to be perfect at it. Nobody is still perfect at it. The best comic artists out there are not perfect. No matter how high a pedestal you put them on, they're just regular, normal people that eat and sleep and do all of that themselves. They've just gained the skills through a lot of practice, just like with any type of artistic endeavor. You do it enough, you get to know what you're doing, and then you start doing it, and then you work harder to do it right and to do it better. And then, eventually you get polished and get out there, and then getting out there and being seen. Right now, that's probably the biggest problem, because outside of a few digital comic sites, it's really rough to get out there in front of a large audience. Not everybody is lucky like Dave Pilkey and Dogman, or, the Marvel and DC right now are so, their numbers are dropping so badly, they're having a hard time being seen themselves. But they need to get back up on that quality bandwagon, I think, and get back out there in front of people, because I know comics literally kept me sane when I was a kid, by taking me to different places, by entertaining me and teaching me different lessons as well, and showing me a wider world than what I have in my corner of the universe. And comics to me is just the best, rawest form of self-expression that you can possibly get. And you see, if you go into like Barnes and Noble and that, there's walls and walls of stuff of people that are doing their own work and telling their own stories. Don't be afraid to do that, and then fight to get it out there in front of as many people as possible. Plus, now anymore, there are classes. I think Mott might have a sequential art course by now, or I know U of M does. They teach sequential art, comic art over there. And there's so many different places to learn. I mean, this is the largest teacher right here is the internet. You can go through YouTube and learn more than what you could probably learn at a college course just by absorbing a bunch of videos. There's a lot of great sites out there teaching comic history. And I do 2 podcasts myself where we look at just great old comics that we love. I got a couple of guys that are regulars that over in Britain, and we sit there and we look at all of the different types of comics from as many different places, all the stuff that we love and we're inspired by, or by the guys that are, and people in general that are just incredibly well talented, that we look and analyze their work and tear it apart and learn from it and are inspired by it. And it's definitely helped our art. We've been doing that for a couple of years.
That's great. So if people want to, you mentioned that you're in some local shops. You mentioned that, you have a new book coming out, you crowdfund. If people want to find some of your work, grab it for themselves, where can they go online? How can they find you?
You can look my name up on Amazon. There's a few books that are up there. The Shadow Kingdom and the Atlantean are up there, and a few other titles as well. There's a War of the Worlds novelization of continuation of the novel that I did quite a few years back that's up there from Caliber Press, called Infestation, War of the Worlds Infestation. You can go into any of the local comic shops and ask for my stuff, and they should have some material. Like I said, I keep meaning to get up to Amazing, but I know Galaxy Comics has samples of my stuff, and Comic Relief locally here has got samples of my stuff. It's all over. All of the Detroit comic shops should know or have something of mine. If not, then they can easily find it just by contacting me. I'm on Facebook if you want to talk to me personally. I have an X account, but I don't go up there very often. But my main thing right now is the fundmycomic.com. And right now, the current book that we're promoting is The Atlantean. which is a sword and sorcery tale of King Kull and Brule, the spear slayer, as they travel their kingdom searching for shape-shifting lizard people and relieve their kingdom of the evil demon infestation that seems to be growing there. But like I said, I love to do all sorts of different comics. So, and parents, be careful, because some of those comics are not meant for younger kids. If you want a comic for your younger kids, I would recommend a Hero Bot Zero. There are other books besides that, Calico, and I do some superhero work here and there, Paragon and Alice in Chains that is available. But yeah, always be careful about the books that you look into, because there's comics out there for all ranges and all education levels. So, it's not just kiddie literature anymore, and it's not all adult smut either. There is a good wide variety of material out there. So, and some really, really great reading out there as well. Not necessarily by me either. So it's good stuff to look. You're never going to go wrong with a Donald Duck or an Uncle Scrooge for your young kids. It's literally DuckTales in comics. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Last question I'm going to leave you with, just because I have to know, seeing everything behind you.
Okay.
What are some of your prized possessions in your collection?
Well, I stopped. Most of my comics I've traded off. I've got a few long boxes of floppy comics. This is kind of a prized possession back here. This is an old Spyro comic rack that they used to put into the drugstores. I've got that loaded up with a few oddball books and comics of stuff that I love to look through. Again, it's inspirational for me when I'm sitting here trying to write or draw or whatever, and I'm able to look it up. But mostly I've got collections, trade paperback books and paperback books, hardback books of really well collected, well printed material of comics throughout the ages. Biggest prized possession might be that Spyro rack. Off the bat, I've got an entire run of old 1950s EC comics in hardback.
Oh, wow. That
they reprinted in black and white way back in the 80s. Just some beautiful material. It's where Tales from the Crypt came from. I've got those. We're looking through those in my podcast right now. And just book collections in general. Never get tired of looking at old comics. Never. There's so much out there and such a wide variety of stuff. It's just, waiting to be explored.
Oh, that's great, Randy. I appreciate you taking the time. Hey, give us a plug for your podcast if people want to hear more from you.
I do 2 shows a week. Friday morning, I do Comics by Night at 5 a.m. on Friday. That's live, but that's because I catch the guys over in England. It's their early morning over there. And then we look through all sorts of comics there. And then Sunday morning at 9 a.m., I do the Sunday Funnies. And we take comics and some of the more unusual types of comics and look at those on the Sunday morning program. Comic strips, bubblegum cards that are, trading cards that are comic based, just unusually formatted comics, just the more crazier stuff. Right now on Sunday Funnies, we're looking at Crime Does Not Pay, which was a series of true crime comics that came out back in the late 40s and 50s that really inspired the Comic Code Authority, because if you ever saw like Goodfellas or Godfather, it is very much like those, only in comic book form. Maybe not all mafia or whatever, but it's all true crime, gangsters, mobsters, that kind of stories that they have this great, they're all morality tales. Everybody gets it in the end. Crime Does Not Pay is the title of the comic. But in the meantime, you see all of the exploits that these old gangsters and mobsters did over their nefarious career. And we're looking at that on Sunday. On Friday mornings, that's why it was handy here. We're looking at Weird Science, which is a science fiction magazine that EC did that has some really pure science fiction short stories in it. And eventually they were adapting Ray Bradbury short stories. That's how big that they were. Just great old science fiction stuff. Bug-eyed monsters, flying saucers, guys shrinking down into micro worlds. So where all of those old science fiction cliches all come from, a lot of them just sprung from this era, from the 50s, and like Outer Limits and Twilight Zone type stories. Just great stuff. fantastic work.
So we find those podcasts on your Facebook.
You can look
YouTube?
for them by name on YouTube. You can look for me under the Indie Comics Network. I've got my shows archived under there. We're also archived at the Randy Zim, that's ZIMM, YouTube channel. I'm putting them all up there as well. So they're very easy to find. If you do a search for Sunday Funnies or Comics by Night, they're going to pop up.
All righty. I appreciate the time today, Randy. Thank you so much for
Caleb. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate it. And I love to talk about comics. So it's just, you can just set me up and give me a timer and we can go for as long as you need.
Yeah. We'll stay in contact. I go to Amazing frequently, so maybe I'll go pitch it to Dwight and Kurt for you.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Dwight will probably get up online and yell at me for not stopping by. He's done that before. So yeah.
There it is.
Yep. I need to get up there real soon.
Thank you, Randy.
Anytime. Thank you, Caleb, very much.